Sometimes, the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And now, your host, Ben Adelberg.
And thank you again for joining me here at the back of the range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 65. Well, as you all know, Rory McIlroy is the Players' Champion. Well-deserved win. I have to be honest, though, I was really pulling for Furyk there in the end. I just thought it was incredible that a 48-year-old guy who's won a major, captained a Ryder Cup team, he's done it all, he's seen it all, and he just absolutely grinded his way around that place for sheer pride and got pretty damn emotional over the experience. And, you know, after speaking with Paul Tesori during last week's episode, I couldn't help but think of Mike Cowan. You know, Fluff is 71 years old. He's an absolute machine out there. He's been on the bag for Tiger, Furyk, Peter Jacobsen. Anyway, congrats to Furyk, congrats to Fluff, and hey, maybe this is the year that Rory gets it done and closes up the Grand Slam at Augusta in a few weeks. Speaking of the Grand Slam, all right, it's called that because there are 4 majors, not 5, 4. The Players' Championship is not a major championship. It's the Players. It has the biggest purse, an amazing field, and it's contested at the tour headquarters in Ponte Vedra Beach every single year. But what does calling it the 5th major actually accomplish? Does that mean that Craig Perks, Tim Clark, and Stephen Ames are going to consider themselves major champions retroactively? Does that take some of the shine off of Sergio's Masters win, since apparently he'd already won a major at the 2008 Players? And let me throw this one out there. What if the marquee names were not at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday? Nothing against Siwoo Kim, but I didn't remember NBC pushing the 5th major tagline for him in 2017 as hard as they did for Rory this year. Just some thoughts. I don't share my own point of view all the time, but maybe I will do a little more of that. So email me, leave comments, roast me. I don't really care. It's a great tournament. I loved watching it. I just hate trying to be sold something by NBC so that they can sell more ads the following year. Speaking of leaving comments, I've been getting a lot of listener feedback recently regarding upcoming episodes, advice on golf trips that some of you guys are taking, tips on how to lower your handicap. I love all this stuff, so thanks to everyone that has reached out. And if you're listening to this episode thinking that I don't get back to everyone, you're wrong. I really do. Love the feedback. Please take the time to leave a review in Apple Podcast. It takes 2 minutes. Please tell other people about the back of the range. That's the only way we're going to grow, only way we're going to keep getting these great guests. So for those of you that follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, keep doing so. And you probably know by now that we have some brand new merchandise in stock. You know, we have our towels. Well, now we have trucker hats. So they are available on the website. A lot of different colors. They're really sturdy. I love this hat. I got them basically for me, but seems like everyone else wants one as well. So go to the website. If you have questions on how to get them, just shoot me an email, ben@thebackoftherange.com, or just check the show notes of this episode. You'll see the link there. And if you want a hat, go ahead and hop in and grab one. So our guest this week is Chris DiMarco. He might be one of the new kids on the block on the Champions Tour, but if you've been following golf for the last 20 years on the PGA Tour, you've seen him as a member of multiple Ryder Cup teams, multiple President's Cup teams. He's top 10 in all of the majors, and he had a front row seat to some of the more iconic moments in the game. You know, he shared his thoughts on the young stars of the PGA Tour, the guys on the Champions Tour that impress him each and every tournament, and we also chatted about his son, Cristian, who's actually following in the old man's footsteps. So let's get to this week's episode. Chris, thanks so much for joining us here at the back of the range. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I just saw you at the Chubb Classic in Naples at the Lily Classics course. And before we dive into a little bit about your resurgence onto the Champions Tour, some of your playing days, I first saw you doing that torturous drill of, it's just a 3-6-9 drill on each side of the cup. For people listening that are trying to improve their games, is that one of your main drills that you work on? What are some putting drills that you've that have been successful for you in the past?
Yeah, I mean, that one is the one I try to use as much as I can. It really just gets you to just have those, those 3, 4, 5 footers just kind of be redundant, really, and and not a big deal, because we know we can all stress over those. So I try to make those as stress free as I can by doing that drill. And you got to make the 3 footers 3 times around, and then you can go on to the 4 footers. You got to make those twice, and you got to make the 5 footers once, and then you got to make all 12 putts in a row before you can leave. So when the greens are good, I can get through it pretty quickly. But when the greens are a little bumpy or it's a little windy, you can be out there for a while. So I definitely, it's definitely helped. I'm absolutely seeing, big, huge improvements in my short putting. And obviously, the more comfortable you feel in the shorter putts, the more comfortable you feel on the longer putts, and you can actually go ahead and be aggressive on the longer putts and try to make putts.
Sure. Can you, without ripping back any scars or any bad memories, can you think of a time after a round on the practice green where that drill just never seemed to end?
Yeah, plenty of times. There's been times where I've been out there for a long time, and I miss one 4-footer or 5-footer, and I'll just say, okay, I'm just going to count that one. And so, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a brutal drill for sure. But when you do it, you do it right, and you stay consistent with it. I've done it every day since I've been in Florida for the last 2 weeks, and I can absolutely see a vast improvement in my putting for sure.
Wow. Well, that's great to hear from you. I'm sure people listening need to take that into consideration. I won't take you back to when you first started the game, but I did want to ask you. You played at the University of Florida. I know you're a rabid Gator and huge fan of their football program. But you started. Actually, it's kind of unique. You started under Coach Lynn Blevins, and then actually Buddy Alexander became your coach. So I'm assuming Coach Blevins recruited you. What was the transition period like when you start with one coach and then go to another coach while you're still in the program?
In all honesty, it was absolutely fantastic having Buddy come in there. Nothing against Lynn Blevins,
sure.
But he certainly wasn't my favorite coach in the world. So he had a different way of teaching. Buddy was definitely more positive, and so it was a blessing, to tell you the truth. I learned a lot from Buddy Alexander for sure.
Well, he's had a lot of amazing players. Actually, a lot of players that have come through this podcast. Duke Butler and Nick Gillum that were stalwarts on his team, just the same as you. Your son just wrapped up his career at University of South Florida. He had a fantastic career. He was unanimous all-conference selection. He won the 100th state amateur in Florida, which was awesome.
Yeah, I never did that. He did. Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I know I tried to qualify for that, did not make it, but I know a lot of people that played in that 100th. That was definitely on people's radar. I'm curious, how do you balance the role of just being a regular supportive father, telling your son to go chase his dreams, but then also need to, I would assume you have tons of insight to share as someone that's been through exactly what he's trying to go through. I know he's on the Mackenzie Tour. How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and the one thing that he's really good at now. I mean, again, I was dad for a long time, and no kid wants to listen to their dad.
Right,
and then
of course,
once he realized that that I would be an asset to him, he started actually asking some advice. And it's hard because he's a lefty. So he's got a great teacher that he goes to, which I'm happy with, because it would have been hard for me to, as a righty, trying to teach him. It's really difficult.
Right.
So, it's a slippery slope for sure. He's a great player, and obviously he actually just went to LatinAmerica and just got his LatinAmerica card.
Okay.
So, which is very good, and he is, going to be playing a lot of that, which is great. I love it, and I'm happy for him, and he just needs to keep going. I mean, he's young. He's had some days where he's like, I can't believe this. I don't even like this anymore. I'm like, listen, you got a long way.
Oh my gosh.
Give it 30 years. Let's start talking,
Wow.
So he's getting it. He's, it's hard. I mean, anything new like that, it's difficult. He's definitely listening to me now, and, it's really good to give advice to each other. And, he helps me out a lot. He's certainly helped with the resurgence of me to, keep my competitive spirits going. When your son can whip your butt, it kind of lights a fire in you to go out and do some good stuff. So I'm proud of him. He just qualified for the Latin American Tour. He just got full exempt status, so he's going to start at the end of March and have a good time. He's actually coming down. I'm in Palm Beach now. He's going to come down tonight. We're going to play golf Tuesday and Wednesday, and he's trying to pre-qualify on Thursday. So it's exciting to see him. And as a professional golfer, I had a talk with him probably 2.5, 3 years ago, actually right before he won the state am. It was only a month before the state am. And I saw some really good things his junior year of college. I see he almost won the conference championship. He lost in the playoff. And he really, but I watched him that whole week. It was at Innisbrook. He played a bogey-free round the last day and made a clutch up and down the last hole to get into the playoff. Knew he needed it. And we were on the beach a little bit, maybe a couple weeks after that, and I gave him my endorsement as a PGA Tour golfer. I said, "Listen, as your dad, you've always got my endorsement. I mean, you kidding me? You can't do anything wrong. You're my son. But as PGA Tour Chris DiMarco, absolutely, I give you my endorsement. Now you have it. You have what it takes. Now you have to go do it. It's not going to come easy. It's not going to be, given to you. You're going to have to go get it. And he works hard. He really does. He's way more mature, way more disciplined than I ever was at his age. Talent-wise, it's pretty similar. I think I was more natural for sure. Didn't really have any tutelage. And, these kids nowadays, you have to have tutelage. You have to have everything or else you can't compete. So,
right.
He's got, swing coach. He has an instructor that works him out. He makes sure he eats right. I mean, there's so much more that goes with it than what used to go with it. So, but he's seen it and he's getting it done. I'm proud of him.
Well, you mentioned, his start. Now he's going to get going on the Latin America Tour. You didn't go that direction. You probably went the complete opposite. You started out kind of on the Canadian Tour. You've been there. You've done kind of the developmental tour route. You know what that entails. Have you been able to share maybe look, you're going to be down in some of these countries that you're not going to know the language. You're not going to know how to get around very well. I've been there going from province to province in Canada. Remembering back then, I think that was about 91, 92. Were there ever times they were like, I don't even know where I'm at right now. I don't even know where the golf course is. And there's no, you can't pull out, the iPhone and Google map yourself over to Alberta.
No.
I mean, can you think of maybe just a rough spot you're in Canada with some of the guys?
I was actually fortunate my first year right out of college. I made it to finals at tour school. So I was I got to play the Hogan Tour.
Okay.
Which was great. My first year, I was the youngest guy out. There was a lot of guys that I got to meet out there that kind of took me under their wing. To this day, you still have Greg Kraft and Pete Jordan and Olin Brown and Ted Treba. Those guys, they still call me kid because that's what I was when I first came out. So
that's great.
I was able to Tom Lehman was on that year. I mean, there were some great players. So it was tough. And then, really right after that year, I didn't play real well. And then I missed it second stage. So I didn't have anything to play. So my wife and I got married in 91. We actually went to South Africa for 9 weeks. And that was tough. That was, obviously there was a lot of safety issues. There was obviously a language barrier with a lot of them speaking Afrikaans. And, it certainly was a great thing. And we were fortunate to, but we drove from, tournament to tournament in a Jetta that didn't have any air. It was 105 degrees there. I mean, it was tough. And, but I was lucky. I had my wife with me. So I was fortunate to have somebody out there with me. His girlfriend, Cristian's got a really steady girlfriend and she's actually working for Stryker. So she's not gonna be able to travel with him. So, there are other guys that he knows that are playing that tour on Latin America Tour that, that can give him some help. I don't know anything about that tour. I just know that, safety's an issue for sure. And obviously traveling's different. You're going from country to country. You're not going from state to state like he does in the United States. So, it's so much easier than it used to be with the cell phones and all that. I mean, we didn't have that. I mean, I tell him all the time when I had to talk to my wife when she was in that Hogan Tour, when she was my fiance. I mean, I said, I'll call you at 8:00. And if she wasn't by the phone at 8:00, then I didn't try to call back for a while because it was, there was no, really no answer machines. There was nothing back then. It was, it was a credit card call and, you try to get a hold of them or collect call, whatever it was. I mean, it's a lot different back then.
Do you recommend traveling to South Africa for newlyweds, or was I guess that's how you figure out really quick if a marriage is going to stick together.
Oh yeah, and back then this was no money, so we flew coach.
Oh, of course.
I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, she actually started caddying for me until we realized that wasn't good, because a lot of the local caddies were offended, and it was a safety issue not to hire a local caddy. So I hired a local caddy that worked for me the whole time, and there was a lot of things, because there's like 12 or 13 different tribes over there, and if you're in the wrong tribe, if your caddy is not from that golf course, I mean, there's safety issues for him. There was a time where my caddy actually was getting death threats and actually left the bag and left the golf course because they said they were going to kill him. So that was that was pretty scary.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Well, it kind of makes that 6-footer look a little bit easier since your caddy left because he thinks he's going to get killed. So I guess you got to keep things in perspective at that point. I'd like to ask you, these are great things you're telling me about your son, but you guys kind of shared a little bit of a odd moment at a U.S. Open local qualifier. I've spoken to Jim Demick, the executive director at the FSGA, and I said, do I have this story right? And I guess the story basically in a nutshell is that Cristian was at a U.S. Open local qualifier going up against Louis Gagne, and they both tied for the same score, and both thought it was not going to be good enough, and they both left. And It turns out that they both were tied on the number for the final spot. We got one problem, though. There's no players there for the playoff. And,
right.
They do. Okay, so I'll let you take it from there, because then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, how does Cristian DiMarco call his dad, who's a PGA Tour member, say you're never going to guess what happened? But you pretty much know what happened because you were on the bag.
I was caddying, yeah. So he was playing such good golf. I mean, I think he made 2 doubles and a triple and shot even par. We tripled 17, and when he left, he was ticked off. So we went to Whole Foods and we ate. And I said, let's go back and see what's going on. He goes, Dad, there's no way that's going to make it. I said, listen, the stranger things, it didn't play that, it didn't play that easy out there. You never know. And, the other thing was we were like the third group off, and then like literally 3 of the top 5 scorers were in those first couple groups. So
right.
A lot of players left, and he's like, Dad, there's no way it's going to make it. So, I'm like, all right, if you want to leave, we'll leave. So we got back home, and about an hour later, he got a phone call from his buddy saying, you should have stayed. You guys, they flipped a coin and you ended up losing. The only good thing to come out of that was he learned a lesson, obviously not to do that again. But a couple weeks later, he got the call and he was able to actually get in. He got in as an alternate to actually the spot he wanted to play. And then I caddied for him that whole day too, 36 holes. And 36 holes. And we ended up missing in a playoff. So, I mean, he played a great first round. I think he shot 400 in the first round and shot 1 over the second round, and at the Bears Club where he won the state am, and he ended up missing in a playoff. But he learned a lot that day. I mean, for sure. And at 22 years old, you do stupid things, and thankfully he got a lesson, but it didn't cost him anything. He was able to still play the qualifier.
Right, of course, yeah. No, I when I read that story, and I did remember at the time, I'm thinking to myself, of all the rule changes we have in this game, we're doing all this stuff. How in the hell does something like that be decided by a coin flip? Like, can't we text the players? Can't we get them back at the course? But hey, I guess they'll figure that out at some point. Before we just hit on a couple of your team appearances in the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup, and obviously, you've top 10 in every major. I can't get away from Gator football too quickly. I know that this is a good subject for you. I know that you, and just like every other PGA Tour player, has always run into the occasional rowdy, inappropriate fan on the golf course. Just how bad are you at UF football games?
I'm a lot better than I used to be. I used to definitely get rowdy and crazy. I'd like to say that I've become more of a gentleman for sure. But I'm fortunate. I usually go with a bunch of people that I know, and we just have a good time. And obviously it's really nice to see, what Dan Mullen's doing, and, the Gator program, the football program is back. I think, the recruiting's back, everything's back. So, but yeah, it's one of my passions for sure. I was a Bull Gator for about 15 years. And since we moved to Denver, I actually gave it up because I just wasn't going to go to any more games.
Sure.
And my buddy that I stayed with, a great friend of mine, Brian Kornblau, is a huge booster there. And he's had a box forever, and he's always got seats for me if I need them. So I actually took advantage of twice this year. I went to the Georgia game and I went to the South Carolina game. So it was it was a lot of fun, and it's great to go back. I have so many good friends up there, and obviously it is a big passion of mine. Saturdays in the fall are some of my best days in the world for sure.
Need to get those early tee times, get that work thing out of the way so you can go watch football, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
When I'm thinking about tailgates, I'm thinking just about, enormous amounts of food and beer. And I guess that is a somewhat of a graceful segue into the fact that I think in previous articles I've read, you were never much of a practicer, never much of a fitness gym rat guy, but you've definitely trimmed down and really gotten into shape to start the Champions Tour. When did fitness really kind of enter your process? I mean, when did that change for you?
It was probably about 2.5 years ago. Again, my kids and my wife are very, very into fitness. My 15-year-old daughter's a vegan, so I mean, it's nutrition and fitness has become something. And I was looking in the mirror and I'm watching them all get all fit. I'm like, okay, I need to do something. So I started getting into it. My wife and I mean, it really has been a resurgent for us because it's nice to have something in common like that. I mean, in Denver, we spend all the time together because we'll go to Orange Theory Fitness, or we'll go to a cycle bar place, or we'll just go walk around, all the parks, great parks. Or we'll go on a hike. We'll take I'll go up to the mountain and go on a hike somewhere. So it's definitely trying to do something every day. I mean, even last week I did on Tuesday and Thursday I did, or Tuesday and Wednesday, I actually did Orange Theory Fitness. Just because I knew I needed to do something because I had to do it. So I did those, and then whatever it might be, like today, I'm just getting ready because I'm right here on the beach. I'm waiting on my son, and I'm going to go for a run on the beach and hopefully try to get this farmer's tan out of there. It is bad.
Nice.
So fitness it's a big thing, and it's become part of your life. And, I knew that competitive wise, I wasn't going to be up there with those guys because they've been doing it for a while. So I knew that if at least I could get fit and get strong, maybe I could be at least that part ahead of the game of them. But there's a lot of great players out there. I'm learning. I'm actually starting to play better golf, which is really good.
Yeah. Well, you've had basically, I think, about 9 or 10 starts now in the Champions Tour. I think you had a few last year, and I know you've played both Florida swing events this year. You're just getting acclimated after, I know you had, shoulder issues back around 07, 08. When you had your amazing run in the early 2000s, the guys on the Champions Tour that were kind of killing it were like, Bruce Litsky and Dana Quigley and Stadler and Watson. Did you think much about the Champions Tour at that point? I mean, I know it would be about 15 years away, but like, did it ever cross your mind, like, I wonder what that's going to be like for me? Or were you even thinking that far ahead? I mean, or what's really surprised you so far? Like, what are your thoughts on where the Champions Tour is right now?
It's in a great spot. I mean, obviously what Bernhard Langer's doing is amazing.
That guy's a freak.
It's a freak. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that, 15 years ago I thought about the Champions Tour, but certainly when I turned 40, I definitely thought about it when I turned 40 and knowing that, my career was kind of slowing down a little bit. I knew that, I always said that once I felt like I was just trying to, get into top 125 and, I wasn't really playing majors anymore. And obviously my kids were older and
right.
I was missing stuff at home and I just didn't feel like I was doing what I needed to do to be out here. Then I knew that I would kind of hang it up. And thankfully for me, the Golf Channel kind of fell in my lap a little bit. And I was able to do that for 3.5, 4 years and you kind of stay relevant in the game and, was able to keep my sponsors and all that. And then when I turned 50, obviously I knew that, this was the way I wanted to go. I knew that TV was pretty much going to be over at that time. And, a playing career was what I wanted to do. And, last year I was humbled for sure. And I knew it last year. I knew those guys were good and I knew that I hadn't been playing much. And, I just tried to take last year as those 6 events just to try to learn what it was about out there, what everything was. And, I knew this year getting to start the whole year that I was going to be way more competitive, which I am, which has been fantastic. Really hadn't played much golf up until last week.
Okay.
It's hard to play golf in Denver, but, I went to Arizona with my son and we spent a week there and practiced and played and putted and, did everything we could. And, just to kind of get myself somewhat ready for the first event. But then, last week I came in and put a lot of work in and both weeks I played really good. I mean, last year, I think in the 6 tournaments I played, I had 1 round under par. And this year I played 2 events and every round I've had has been under par. So
yeah.
Just missing that, that 65 or 66, it's out there. I'm just not haven't done it yet. And that's coming. That's the next step. The first step was to get competitive again, which is what I did the first 2 weeks. And then now it's trying to get myself in one of those last few groups and have a chance to win.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of acclimating yourself, making the transition from not just the PGA Tour, but also from the Golf Channel to Champions. What's been something, I know there's probably a ton of crossover, but there's also maybe a couple differences that you've noticed and pinpointed right away. Is there something that just stuck out that you're like, oh, wow, this is different than what I experienced on the PGA Tour?
It is certainly not a marathon on the Champions Tour. It is a sprint. So,
Okay.
If you're even or one under through the first 10, 11 holes, you look at the board, you are back usually by 5 or 6 or 7 shots, and there's a bunch of guys between you and the leader. So you got to kind of have your foot on the gas and never take it off. And the one thing that, like the best advice I got is Billy Andre just said, just don't be scared. You just got to go out and do it. You don't have time to be nervous. You
Right.
don't, because
Okay.
if you take 2 or 3 holes and you're nervous, all of a sudden, that's 2 or 3 birdies that the other guys are making. So it's basically, it's just gunning for it. I mean, there's really not much money, from 45th to 78th, there's not much difference in the money either. So you might as well go ahead and give it your all.
Yeah, no. So basically, it's like par is just not a good number out there, is it? I mean, obviously weather comes into play and different course setups and things like that. But the standard 410 par 4, where you knock it on the green and have 25 feet, you miss that. That's a bad par.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, I shoot 69, 70, 70 last week, and I finished 41st. So I mean, that's what that tells you. I mean, that's 3 rounds under par. I mean, it's 4 under par for the week, and the week before was the same thing. I was 4 under par. I mean, a little bit harder golf course, and I finished 30th. So I mean, it is. You definitely have to have that low round. Even if you look yesterday at the leaders, Bernard Langer shot a 69 and a 70, but he threw a 63 in there.
Yeah.
So you have to have that one low round. And Jesper Parnevik said it perfect. He goes, if you shoot like 1 under every day, you're going to finish top 45. If you finish 3 under every day, you're probably going to finish top 25. And if you shoot 5 under every day, you have a chance to win. And that's about right. So it's just a matter of getting that right. And because that's about what wins. I mean, I think it was 13 this week. It played really hard on Sunday. I know Olin gave it away, kind of made a bad double on the last hole, but it's out there, and the birdies are there. I mean, for me, it was kind of nice to, I know I lost by 9 shots. I could see 9 shots better easily out in that golf course this weekend. I mean, I played good, but I'm leaving some, I'm not making the 10, 15 footers like I need to make. I missed a bunch of those.
Gotcha. You mentioned the Golf Channel. I'm not going to dig into that too deeply, but one thing I'm kind of curious on: how competitive is it to be in TV with golf? You mentioned that it kind of fell into your lap. How competitive was it for you?
I always, what I tried to do with the Golf Channel, because I can see it sometimes with, whether it's, Brandel Chambly, he can be a little controversial, and some other guys. I always try to take the player's perspective. I always felt like I was talking from and for the players' point of view. And, I never threw a player under the bus unless he did something really, really stupid and he deserved it. But for the most part, I always try to give the perspective from a player's point of view. And I think that's why they hired me. And I think that's why they enjoyed me on the air. I know a lot of people appreciated that perspective. I wasn't there to talk about the 18th hole at Augusta and talk about, what the stroke average is there and all that. I'm there to tell you what it feels like to have a chance to win the Augusta and what it feels like on that 18th hole and what I was feeling, playing Tiger the last day. I mean, that's what I was there for. So that's what I tried to, keep in mind.
Of course. Well, I was just curious because there's different roles, different personalities there, and I just was curious about that. You mentioned the Masters. You made your first appearance at the Masters in 2001. You got in by winning a tournament. That was the first year that tournament was ever played. So it was the old Pennsylvania Classic that turned into the 84 Lumber. So you're playing it at Waynesboro Country Club that probably not many people even remember, even know about. It's your first win on tour at a course where I guess no one really has an advantage of knowing the course very well. Did that enter your mind leading into that tournament, or was this just another event on the calendar and you just did the best you could? Like, do you remember kind of your thoughts going into that event?
Well, I was told afterwards, I didn't even realize it, but I had played that course before.
Okay.
at the at the U.S. Amateur where they had it at where did Justin Rose just win, or where did he win his U.S. Open?
Marion.
Marion. So so it was the U.S. Amateur at Marion, and the other course we played was Waynesboro.
Okay, so
I didn't even realize that, and I didn't even realize it until after the round. I didn't even realize I played that course. So but you know what? That was one of those weeks for me. I mean, I think everybody averaged at least 6 or 7 free putts for the week they averaged, and I didn't have any, and I ended up winning by 6 shots. So that was definitely a good putting week for me. You know, I mean, that I like that. I like when we go to courses where nobody knows. I mean, this was a new one that nobody knew the course at Lele Resort. So, you know, I mean, when nobody has an advantage, then, you know, it's what it is. I mean, I know that, you know, out here for the most part, a lot of these golf courses, all these guys know they've been playing it for years and years. You know, I'm looking forward to going back to Houston. I'm looking forward to, you know, going back to Endicott, New York. You know, last year at Flint was great. Going to play the courses that we played on tour. So, you know, it's fun. It really is. But it's competitive out here. These, you know, the biggest misconception out here on the Champions Tour is that people think that the courses are shorter, the greens are slower. That's not the case at all. It's just that these guys are really good. They really are. And, you know, I think that gets overlooked a little bit because I think, you know, they tend to think that, you know, well, you know, look at the scores they're shooting. Well, they're shooting the scores because they're really good. And I think that, you know, if you put Bernard Langer on the PGA Tour, you put Tom Lehman on the PGA Tour, you take a handful of these guys and put them on the PGA Tour, they would not only keep their cards, but they would win tournaments.
Well, it's also, it's not like those scores that you guys are shooting out there are not being shot on other tours. Look at the web. Look at all the, I mean, golfers are better. Conditions are better. I mean, they're just, everything's better. So you get into the Masters at 01. It's your first time there. No one's going to really be shocked if you miss the cut because it's your first time and there's just a huge learning curve at Augusta. And you go out and shoot 65, 69 like you're a member. You know, that's what people remember. Those are the high points. What were maybe some of the rookie mistakes you made just being around Augusta National for the first time? Because, you know, you don't know where to park. You don't know the ins and outs of the place. You know, can you remember any just like bonehead rookie mistakes you made, not necessarily on the course, but just in general?
You know, that's the one thing that's great about Augusta is, you know, it's kind of hard to mess it up because you drive right down Magnolia Way, and, you know, it's kind of hard to screw it up. And, you know, parking was great. I mean, you know, once you learn your stuff there, it's great. I mean, the one thing about Augusta was that I think everybody kind of knows that golf course. I mean, I watched the Masters,
of course,
for, you know, 15 years before I ever went there. I always knew, you know, I listened to the interviews. I always knew on the 12th hole, you never went at the pin there. You hit it over the bunker. That way, if it came up short, you were in the bunker. You weren't, you know, in the water. So, you know, there was a lot of things. I knew the golf course before I got there. It was obviously the first time I ever played it was the first time I ever saw it visually. I always told my buddies used to go up in college, and I used to say I wasn't going until I was invited.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's great. Augusta is a place like no other. It was great to play, you know, in the early 2000s when I played it, because the course wasn't overly long. I mean, you know, the first hole was still just a driver and a 9-iron for me. You know, now it's just ridiculous how long it is. It's, you know, that 18th hole back there. I mean, I got to hit a driver, you know, 250 yards just to get around the corner. Well, I mean, my driving distance 270. So, I mean, it's hard. I couldn't even imagine playing it, you know, right now.
You know, everyone's familiar with 2005 with Tiger's chip in. That's pretty much been there, done that as far as, you know, asking you questions about that. It's all out there. But the thing I wanted to ask you is I really remember in one of these highlight videos for that Masters where you were, I think, walking up to the clubhouse and you were stopped by Ken Venturi. And and he had a moment with you, kind of gave you a little bit of a pep talk. I think there was a it was a very minuscule clip, something about just basically, you know, stick with what got you here. But did you have a relationship with Ken Venturi before then, or did he kind of just seek you out at that tournament? Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, my dad actually played in a tournament with him in a Pro-Am. And this was before I even made it on tour. So, you know, my dad always, you know, oh, my son's good. You know, who knew what I was going to turn out to be. And I'm sure Ken turned out for everybody. But my dad was a, God rest his soul, was a pretty magnanimous person and my, you know, hard to forget. So, you know, I remember Ken telling me the story of, you know, I remember playing with your dad. I mean, I can tell you I played 1,000 Pro-Ams and I can't remember, but maybe about 8 or 10 people that I could vividly remember and, you know, would be able to do that. So Ken, you know, that my dad stuck with Ken. And, he saw me kind of, play my best golf and would always have kind words for me, whether it was after the round or, even in the booth walking away, he'd yell down to me, whatever it might be. I mean, he was a great man. He was a great champion.
Yeah.
He was one of the best announcers ever. I mean, he really was. And he truly, truly wanted to see people play good. He really did.
Yeah. Did you have that? Who were some of your other mentors when you got on tour besides Venturi, or who were some of the good storytellers? I feel like maybe we don't have as many storytellers anymore on tour.
Nick Price was one of the best. I mean, Nick Price, if there was a rain delay, wherever Nick Price was in the locker room, there was 30 people around him. He was telling jokes and being funny and just unbelievable. Peter Jacobson was unbelievably welcoming when I got out there. I mean, he was just a fantastic guy. There's so many, I think that the tour's different now. I mean, now you look out there and everybody's on their phone. You don't know anybody in the locker room. There's really not communication anymore. I mean, it's crazy. So, you really had true friendships out there. And that's what's great about the Champions Tour now for me is that all my friends are on this tour. So, I can go down the range and I can have a conversation with one of 50 guys on the range. Cause I mean, we go back and we have stories together from different times we played and things like that. So it's even like Sandy Lyle this last week, I played with him and, you're talking about that first round at Augusta when I shot 65, I was with him.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him that. So, I mean, he was playing with me and he goes, oh yeah, I remember that round. You played fantastic and you did a lot of good things. So, he was a great guy. And obviously, he when I started playing good, he kept me motivated for both days because I played with him the first 2 days. And, he saw that I was playing good and he was cheering me on. And I mean, just, you really see that with the older guys. I think it's great. I think, obviously we're all in the same boat. We're still all trying to make money, but it's a lot more, I guess there's more camaraderie on the Champions Tour than there was on the PGA Tour. PGA Tour is big business. Everybody was out for themselves. I mean, the Web Tour and the Champions Tour, there's definitely more companionship out there, and you definitely get along with more guys, and because you're all kind of in the same boat, and the Champions Tour is a second coming, so to speak, and the Web.com Tour, you're trying to get your cards. Everybody's kind of has the same goal in mind, and so it's and the PGA Tour is big business, but I love what they're doing out there in the PGA Tour Champions. It is a fantastic tour, and it is got some great players and just some great guys.
No, absolutely. I've enjoyed being at the last two events. I'm sorry I'm not going to make the next one because I got to stay here in South Florida and try and work a little bit. But I really did enjoy the 2 weeks I was out there and experiencing that tour. It's funny you mentioned these kids on the PGA Tour that got their head in their phone, and I was thinking about, how are they going to attract new sponsors? How are they going to, talk to the leaders of industries and CEOs if they don't maybe have the best social skills and they got their head in their phone all the time? And I know that's probably kind of not a doomsday prediction, but it's kind of looking a little bit too further down the road. But is that something that they should be concerned about? Like, how are these young kids going to be able to talk to executives that are the sponsors that make that tour run?
Well, that's the problem, and that's the one thing that I try to tell them, all the kids out there. For me, I leave my phone in my locker when I'm playing a pro-am, and so I think that needs to be almost a rule on tour. I don't think that you should be able to have your phone with you on the golf course, especially if you're playing in a pro-am and you're entertaining these guys.
I know you played in, I love the Ryder Cup, President's Cup, any sort of team matches. I'm a big fan of, whether it's, Solheim, Walker, doesn't really matter. You got your first taste of that. I mean, you've had incredible, you could have played in any one of these teams, any one of these matches, you played in all the majors, but your first one is 2003. So you're heading back to South Africa. You had it was your first experience there. You go 2-3, but that's probably one of the most famous team matches ever because of how it ended.
Yep.
And I'm watching, and I was pulling up the footage and looking at it. So for people that don't remember, 2003 President's Cup, it ends in a tie, and it's 17-17, I believe. And it's not like the Ryder Cup where, okay, the tie, whoever holds the cup retains, and see you next time, and that's it. The rules are where there is going to be a sudden death. So they put the names in the envelope, and obviously Gary Player picks, Ernie Els, because that's South Africa, and he's the native son. Jack or Mr. Nicholas picks Tiger. you're there for 3 holes watching these guys go sudden death. That has got to be the best ticket ever for golf. You're with your team.
It was.
I mean, talk me through that, because I can't imagine anyone that. I mean, I'd love to be in that spot.
It was pretty good. It actually, in all honesty, I mean, looking back, it probably was unfair to Tiger and to.
Oh, of course, that's awful. I mean, Ernie,
especially Ernie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, God, Ernie. Jeez.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it ended up being exactly what it should have been.
Right.
It really did, because I think that it should have ended in a tie. It really should have. It was that it was that awesome played, and it was just so good for the golf. I think it really was good for the game. In all honesty, it was to see the sportsmanship between Mr. Player and Mr. Nicklaus. So, the putts that they made. I mean, the putts they made on that third hole, it was dark. And I mean, Tiger made an 18-footer that I'm telling you couldn't even see. And that was sure nothing but will. And then Ernie made like a 7-8-footer to keep it going. And both those guys were walking right to the next hole to go to the thing. I mean, they were both in complete game mode focus. And then they ended up calling it. And it ended up being great for them, because I think it probably would have been a bad mark in either one of their careers if they would have not won that. So, it ended up being great for TV. They went to 3 extra holes. They had a great match, but then to be able to, end in a tie, I think that was the best thing that could happen.
What and I said I was watching. It's a rule that it goes to sudden death, but the TV coverage on NBC, you see basically they all huddle together, and then the teams separate and they huddle privately, trying to figure out what to do. There's Mr. Nicklaus is on an old Nokia brick phone calling Tim Fincham saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. What was it like when you guys went as a team and huddled and say, what do you think? I know this is your first team appearance. You're a rookie. What was that when you guys are all huddled there in the dark on this green? Do you remember the conversation, or who spoke up? Who said this? Who said that?
Originally, and it was really funny, I don't think they got it in audio, but Jack's like, I think we should call it a tie. And Gary's like, yeah. And then Jack goes, well, that means we retain it because we held the cup. And Gary's like, no. That's not how it's going to work. and so then they both, they asked us, what do you guys think? And we all were kind of in agreement that, let's just both co-win this.
Right.
And it, again, like I said, I think it was just great for the game.
Obviously you played on 2 Ryder Cup teams, 04, 06. Both of them were the big lopsided losses, unfortunately, for the U.S. One was on our soil, one was on their soil. I guess without digging too much into that, but just from a player's perspective, what were the differences that you experienced between the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup? Not so much about, I won this one, I lost that one, but.
I think that the biggest thing for me was that, I don't know why, but we definitely, for some reason, got a little bit more crazy with the Ryder Cup. It was always a lot harder for some reason. I don't know why, but we definitely tended to, I guess, freeze up, for a better word, lack of better words. I mean, I think we didn't play our best. I mean, it was just, I think it was maybe a little more nerve-wracking, for sure. I know I was more nervous in the Ryder Cup than I was the President's Cup. The one thing I did, and I always liked about the President's Cup was that we played more matches.
Right.
I always felt like if it's 12 people, I mean, all 12 people should get to play at least 3 or 4 matches. I mean, I don't like the fact that, you can kind of hide people. I mean, if you guys are good enough to make the top 12 on either squad, whatever that is, you should be able to play the whole thing. And, in the Ryder Cup, sometimes you only play, I mean, one year the Europeans only played, some guys only played 1 match.
Yeah.
So, I never was a fan of that. I felt like, if we're going to play, we're all going to play. Let's put our 12 best out there and go at it.
The 06 team, you had 4 rookies on that team, with only one of them actually, ended up playing future Ryder Cups. That was Zach Johnson. You had Verplank. He never played another. This was your last appearance. I know that
Wetterick,
Vaughn Taylor. I know that, you had the shoulder injury in 07 that really kind of sidelined you. You're looking at the teams and stacking them up. You're a sports fan. I'm sure when the Gators are playing Bama or playing LSU, you may think, okay, our wide receiver can beat their secondary, or their front line's better than ours. But were you looking at the teams, stacking them up and saying, man, we're in trouble? Or what were your thoughts with that lineup when it came out?
I never, ever thought that you were in trouble again, because, again, like anything, the PGA Tour, if you're good enough to make a 12-man team, then, obviously you've had a good year. Phil and I obviously had just had unbelievable success the year before at the President's Cup. So we went over and we both kind of played like crap. I mean, I think I was 0-3-1. I think Phil was 0-4-1.
Yeah.
So, when you are expected to go out and be the guy, so to speak, and then you don't, well, then, things change. And, it's so funny. I always listen to people and what they say, and they go, oh man, well, the Americans just don't look like they're having any fun. They don't look like they're having a good time. Well, let me tell you, when you're losing, it sucks. And when you're losing, it is no fun.
Right.
And you're not going to have a good time. So, basically, winning is fun and it's contagious. And when you can do it, guess what? You actually play better. So, I always thought that was one of the funniest things ever when people would kind of.
Well, it's also people that aren't there. They don't understand what.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the Europeans are having way more fun. Well, they're winning.
Yeah,
winning is fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty simple case.
How did you and Phil get put together in 2005 at the President's Cup? You guys won 3.5 points. I mean, you won 3 matches, halved 1. How did that pairing happen?
Obviously, he always liked to play with guys that, like he never wanted to play with Tiger. And I mean, the other big names on the team, he really didn't play with. He liked playing with like the younger, not younger guys, but the guys that really weren't as like he's always had a great relationship with Keegan Bradley, and he did it with other guys, and he just, So, I think that we paired good together. We both love to like gamble on the course. We both love football. I mean, we just had a lot in common, and we played a lot of practice rounds together. And it's nice when you feel friendly with somebody. And it's, again, when you're playing with Phil Mickelson or you're playing with Tiger Woods, there's a lot of pressure because these guys are the spotlight. These guys are going to be the ones that are going to be shown.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was able to kind of do that with Phil and perform well, is something I take away and know that I can do. If I'm going to do it with playing with Phil, then it's something pretty easy I can do.
Yeah. I will get you out of here on just a little quick bucket of questions. So you can just give me a quick reply to these, or make it as long as you want to. But slow play on the PGA Tour, will it ever really be fixed? Will fines ever happen? Can anything really happen?
No, and it needs to. It's absolutely egregious. And, I think ultimately the money's not going to matter. Guys making so much money out there, they put money away. I think it's going to have to be penalty strokes. It's just going to have to be that way. They're going to have to just say, you know what? It's a 2-shot penalty, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because the guys that are slow know they're slow.
Of course.
And the problem is they know how to get around the rules. And our rules officials, they don't like to call it. And, it's, I should never get a penalty for slow play because I'm not a slow player. But the guys that are slow, I mean, if there's times that, I mean, that's the gray area that to me is so difficult, is that, because there is no black and white, but the guys that are slow know they're slow, and yet they can get around it. And then a guy that is a quick player all the time, maybe has a bad time, it's hard to penalize him because you shouldn't penalize him. But,
right.
The slow players, he was slow too. So, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Waste Management Open. Has the craziness and the the beer consumption and making it a party, what's your feeling on that? Is it a little too much? Are we getting to the point where it's kind of jumping the shark, where we got to kind of tame that down, or is that good for golf? I
think it's awful.
Okay.
And the problem is, and I've said it before, I've been pretty vocal about this too. I don't like, they're not there to watch golf.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And, I always say this, if Jack Nicklaus said, you know what, I'm going to go make one more swan song. I'm going to go play Phoenix Open. And he went there, and that crowd there, and if he missed the green, they would boo him.
Yep.
That's the mentality of that crowd. And the problem is again, they're just looking for some kind of thing at it. Like, I thought it was pretty, what they did to Matt Kuchar this year. One of the nicest guys ever. And they're, pay your caddy. I mean, It's like, come on, guys. I mean, really? So, listen, I've had some run-ins there. The problem is that you can't really do anything about it, and the players can't say anything. I mean, if I go to the papers in Phoenix and say, yeah, it's out of control, I wish they weren't, I'd get killed.
Yeah.
I'd get absolutely just destroyed by them, on that hole. So everybody's got to go, oh, it's one hole. We kind of like it, but it's not just one hole.
No, it's not one
every
hole.
hole.
Yeah.
It's on the golf course, and they're just hammered drunk, and there's just no respect.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I hit a bad shot, booming. If I miss a putt, booming. I get it. But give me a chance to hit a bad shot. Give me a chance to miss a putt.
Yeah.
And then they don't. They're booing you before you get up there. They're trying to get a rise out of you. And it's, for me, it's pretty simple to police. All you got to do is, put 15 or put like 20, anywhere from 100 to a couple hundred undercover cops. And the first guy that yells and says something you shouldn't say, you're out.
Yeah.
You throw 15, 20 guys out. Guess what happens? People realize, oh, I can't say that anymore.
Well, now the problem with social media is that, like 10, 15 years ago, some guy yelling Baba Booey or mashed potatoes, that's just
right.
That's so that guy or that lady can get noticed right there by the 30 people or 50 people around them. Now, like I see some guys heckling Sergio coming down the stairs saying, hey, something about a bunker, with his DQ that he got. They're doing that, but they do it with their phone out, videoing and hoping he'll turn around so they can immediately post that on Instagram. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what are we doing?
Well, I made a comment one year where I just said, you know what? I said, I would love to get a cooler, beer, go in somebody's office, put my feet up on a desk and yell at him while he's working. I mean, granted, do I have a great job? Am I blessed? Absolutely.
Of course.
And I'm not saying anything about it. And again, and I say this too, because, the fans in Phoenix, it is such a minute percentage. There could be 10, 15,000 people around the 16th hole, and it's like 100 guys that are making it bad for everybody.
Yeah. It's
not everybody. It's just such a small percentage of it, but you could never bring a 8 to a 12-year-old to 16th hole on Saturday or Sunday.
No.
There's no way.
Yeah,
you couldn't do it.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with knocking down some beers, getting a little bit liquored up, being quiet, and then betting with your buddies whether or not Chris DiMarco or Tiger Woods hits the green, and then laughing or cheering when they do or don't. There's nothing wrong with that, but verbal assaults is when it gets a little bit kind of crazy.
Well, you shouldn't, because I miss a putt and I make a bogey, you shouldn't call me an effing idiot because I lost $2 for you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, I get it. Trust me. It cost me a lot more money, that little 4-footer that I missed.
Nice.
So I'm not happy about it either. And, it's just something that they need to.
This isn't a monster. It's not a monster. This isn't a monster truck rally. This isn't, this is something a little bit different. Yeah. It
needs to be toned down a little bit.
Yeah.
They're letting it get, it's like, whatever wants to go on. I mean, there's women flashing their boobs. I mean, it's crossed the line is what it has.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, go out, have a good time, have some drinks. If they miss the green, you boo them. Yeah, we get that. That goes with the territory. But you don't get personal with people.
Of course.
Golf is not that game. That's the thing. And, it's just not. It's not football and it's not basketball. It's it's a gentleman's sport. And, it's to me. And I'm trying not to be like a old stodgy player or whatever. I'm not. What these people don't realize is that if I was not playing and I was in the stands, they didn't love me because I'd be just like them.
Well, and the thing is,
if I was at a football game, they would love to be with me. I'd be drinking just as much beer as them. I mean, I wouldn't be yelling, bad things at the players, but I would be having a good time. I can promise you.
Right, and you're someone that's saying it not for someone that you're in the Champions Tour. I think you're saying it from a point of view where you want to protect the future of the PGA Tour. You're not old guy, get off my lawn.
It's amazing the fans on the Champions Tour, how great they are.
Oh yeah.
They just get it. Yeah, there's some guys out there that get a little loud and have fun, but it's nothing like the regular tour. The regular tour, it is everybody's just screaming just to be heard.
All right, final question. What does a 50-year-old Chris DiMarco say to a 21-year-old Chris DiMarco if he had the chance?
If I had to go back, and I've been pretty fortunate with my spending. My wife and I probably.
Oh, I know you got
some cars and stuff.
I know you got a lot of TVs and fridges in your house. I already know about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I would. Yeah. I mean, the one regret, and I don't regret it because my kids had the best house ever,
right?
Was the house that we had just moved from. How much we spent on it was just a joke, and the market killed us and all that. But I would just say be a little more weary be more weary of spending, which we did a pretty good job with. We were not frugal, but we certainly made sure that we were set up for the rest of our lives. And the other thing I would say is just choose your friends wisely.
Interesting.
Because what happens is that people tend to, because of who you are and what you're doing, they've always got a handout. So that would be the only other thing I would say. Just choose your friends wisely.
And every single week, your salary's published.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times I picked up bills for friends. I mean, like 1,000 times. So, yeah,
because they like, hey, you just
with no reciprocation.
Yeah,
so,
and they're like,
I would tell myself to be a little bit more weary and probably say no a little bit more. Is what I would tell myself.
Chris, this has been an amazing episode. I really appreciate being so forthcoming and sharing all this great information about, obviously, your career and then moving forward in the Champions Tour. Wish you the best, and we'll follow you the rest of the way, and good luck out there.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I enjoyed being on.
And another great episode here at the Back of the Range. Special thanks to Chris DiMarco for joining us this week. Don't forget, we have new merchandise available on the website. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for all the latest information. And please leave a review in Apple Podcast. We'll see you next week for episode 66 here at the Back of the Range.